Marcus and Summer Washington stepped into luxury motors on a bright Tuesday morning. The showroom gleamed with polished cars that caught the light through the large glass windows. After 25 years of marriage, both working hard at their careers, they finally decided to reward themselves with a luxury vehicle. Marcus, a software engineer at a respected tech company, held Simon's hand as they walked in. Simon had just been promoted to head pediatrician at the city hospital last month. They were dressed well. Marcus in a navy blazer and Simon in a stylish pantsuit, ready to make a significant purchase. "This is the one I was telling you about," Marcus said, pointing to a sleek silver sedan in the center of the showroom. Simon nodded with a smile. They had researched for weeks and saved for years for this moment. The couple stood by the car for nearly 15 minutes, watching as salespeople assisted other customers who had entered after them. 3 different staff members walked past, making brief eye contact but quickly looking away. "Maybe we should ask someone directly," Simon suggested. Marcus nodded and approached a salesman named Brad who was typing at a computer. "Excuse me," Marcus said politely. "My wife and I are interested in the new sedan model. Could we get some information?" Brad looked up, his eyes quickly scanning the couple. "Oh, sure. Give me just a minute to finish this." He continued typing for several more minutes while Marcus waited patiently. Finally, Brad stood up with a tight smile. "That particular model starts at $85,000. Were you looking for something more? Entry level?" Marcus kept his composure. "No, we're interested in this specific model. We'd like to take it for a test drive if possible." Brad hesitated. "We'll need to run a credit check first. These vehicles require excellent credit." "That's fine," Simon said, stepping forward. "We both have credit scores above 800. Brad looked surprised but led them to the finance office where they met the manager, Richard Collins. Richard was a tall man with gray hair and an expensive watch. His office walls were covered with sales awards. "So you're interested in our premium sedan?" Richard asked, his tone skeptical as he reviewed their information. "Yes, we've been planning this purchase for some time," Marcus explained. Richard frowned at the computer screen. "I see you live in Oakwood Heights. That's quite a drive from here." "About 30 minutes, Simon replied. "We chose this dealership because of your reputation." Richard leaned back in his chair. "Look, I'll be straight with you. This might not be the right fit. We have customers who've been with us for generations. Perhaps you might be more comfortable at Wilson's Autos across town. They have more affordable options." Marcus felt a flush of anger and embarrassment. "Our combined income is over $300,000 annually. We have excellent credit and can pay a substantial down payment today." Richard smiled thinly. "It's not about the money. It's about finding the right car for the right customer. I don't think we have what you're looking for." Other customers in the showroom began to stare as Richard's voice carried. A security guard moved closer to the office door. "Are you refusing to sell us a car?" Simone asked directly, her voice steady despite her shock. "Of course not," Richard replied smoothly. "I'm simply suggesting you might find better options elsewhere. We're quite busy today with serious buyers." Marcus took Simon's hand. "Let's go," he said quietly. As they walked out, the humiliation burning in their chests, Marcus pulled out his phone. "I'm calling Devon," he said, referring to their son. "He needs to hear about this." Little did the staff at Luxury Motors know who Devon Washington was or what was about to happen next. Devon Washington sat in his downtown penthouse office, reviewing quarterly reports when his phone rang. Seeing his father's name on the screen, he smiled and answered quickly. "Dad, how did the car shopping go?" Devon asked cheerfully. The silence on the other end told him something was wrong. Then he heard his father's voice, usually so strong and confident, now strained with emotion. "They wouldn't even let us test drive it, son," Marcus said. "Made us feel like we didn't belong there." Devon's grip tightened on his phone as his father explained what happened at Luxury Motors. His mother's voice occasionally joined in from the background, adding details about the humiliating experience. "The manager, Richard something, basically told us to go to a cheaper dealership," Marcus continued. "Like we couldn't afford to be there. Your mother and I have never been treated like that before." Devon stood up and walked to the floor-to-ceiling windows of his office. At 32, he had achieved what most people couldn't in a lifetime. 7 years ago, he had created an artificial intelligence program that revolutionized global shipping logistics. Last year, he had sold his company for $4.3 billion but stayed quiet about his wealth. Only his parents and a small circle of trusted associates knew the full extent of his fortune. "I'm sorry that happened to you," Devin said, his voice now cold with anger. "Which dealership was this again?" "Luxury Motors on Madison Avenue," his mother answered. "But don't worry about it, honey. We'll just go somewhere else." Devin checked his watch. "Are you two free for dinner tonight? I want to hear more about this." 3 hours later, the Washington family sat at their favorite restaurant, a small family-owned place they had been visiting since Devon was a child. As they ate, Devon listened carefully to every detail of his parents' experience. 25 years of marriage, both of us working our whole lives to build something, Simone said, shaking her head. And they looked at us like we were nothing. Devon nodded slowly. Few people knew that his parents had put everything on the line to support his education. They had remortgaged their house to help him start his first business when no investor would take a chance on him. "This Richard guy," Devon asked. "What did he look like?" Marcus described the manager in detail. Devon took notes on his phone, occasionally asking questions about other staff members they had encountered. "Why are you so interested in the details?" Simone asked, noticing her son's intensity. Devon put down his phone and looked at his parents. "Because I want to understand exactly what happened. Things like this shouldn't happen to anyone." After dinner, Devon drove his parents home and hugged them both tightly. "Don't worry about that dealership," he said. "There are plenty of other places that would be happy to have your business." On the drive back to his penthouse, Devon made a call to his chief financial officer. "Melissa, I need you to get me everything you can on Luxury Motors. Ownership structure, financial health, recent sales figures. Everything." "May I ask why?" Melissa inquired. "I'm considering a new investment," Devon replied. "Also, call my lawyer. I need him to clear his schedule tomorrow morning." Back at his penthouse, Devon spent hours researching Luxury Motors. He discovered the dealership was part of Collins Automotive Group, a chain of 7 luxury car dealerships in 3 states. The owner, James Collins, was the father of Richard Collins, the manager who had humiliated his parents. More importantly, Devon found that Collins Automotive Group was in financial trouble. Their sales had dropped 30% in the last year, and they had recently laid off staff. At 2 a.m., Devon finally went to bed with a plan firmly in place. Tomorrow would be a very different day at Luxury Motors. Devon woke up at 5:30 a.m., earlier than usual. He had slept only 3 hours, but his mind was sharp with purpose. He showered quickly and dressed in jeans and a plain black t-shirt, nothing that would suggest his wealth or status. By 6 a.m., he sat at his kitchen island with his laptop open, a cup of black coffee beside him. His financial team had sent him a detailed report on Collins Automotive Group overnight. The more Devon read, the clearer the picture became. The company was in serious trouble. They had taken out large loans to expand just before the economic downturn. Now, they were struggling to make payments. 2 of their 7 dealerships had already been quietly put up for sale. Devon picked up his phone and called his lawyer, Alexander Reed. "I know it's early, Alex, but I need to move fast on this," Devon explained as he outlined his plan. "It's aggressive," Alex replied after listening, "but completely legal if we structure it right. I'll have the papers ready by 9. Devon's next call was to his bank. He arranged for a significant amount of money to be made available immediately. The bank president himself got on the call when he heard the sum Devon was requesting. "Mr. Washington, may I ask what this is for?" the president asked carefully. "A business acquisition," Devon answered simply. "I'll need the funds available today." After finishing his calls, Devon searched social media for information about Luxury Motors and its staff. He found several online reviews mentioning discriminatory treatment. Some customers had posted their experiences, describing situations similar to what his parents had faced. Devon took screenshots of everything. He also found Richard Collins' personal social media accounts, confirming he was indeed the son of James Collins, the owner. Richard's post showed a man who loved to display his wealth, expensive vacations, designer clothes, and parties on yachts. At 8:45 a.m., Devon's assistant arrived at his penthouse with a folder of documents. These just came from Mr. Reed's office, she said, handing him the folder. He said everything is ready for signatures. Devon reviewed the papers carefully. They included a letter of intent to purchase Collins Automotive Group, non-disclosure agreements, and a draft contract with very specific terms. At 9:30 a.m., Devon's phone rang. It was Melissa, his chief financial officer. I have more information on James Collins, she said. He's currently facing a divorce that could cost him half the business. He's desperate for cash and has been trying to find investors quietly. Perfect timing, Devon replied. Are you at the office? Yes, with the team you requested. Good. I'll need everyone ready to move the moment I call. Devon glanced at his watch. Luxury Motors would have opened at 9 a.m. He wanted to give the morning staff time to settle in before he arrived. He called his driver. Thomas, bring the Honda around, not the Bentley. 20 minutes later, Devon arrived at Luxury Motors in an ordinary Honda Civic. He wanted to experience firsthand how the staff treated average customers. Thomas, his driver, stayed in the car as instructed. The showroom looked exactly as his parents had described it. Gleaming cars arranged strategically on the polished floor, salespeople in expensive suits talking to well-dressed customers. Devon entered quietly and began looking at a car near the entrance. He touched nothing, just observed. After 10 minutes, not a single salesperson approached him. He noticed how they glanced his way, but quickly turned their attention to other customers who looked more promising. He recognized Richard Collins from his social media photos. The manager was talking animatedly to an older white couple, smiling broadly as he showed them features on a luxury SUV. Devon took out his phone and sent a text message to Alex and Melissa. I'm here. Everything as expected. Bring the team in 30 minutes. He put his phone away and continued to observe, gathering more evidence with each passing minute. The stage was set. Now it was time to change the script entirely. After nearly 45 minutes of being completely ignored, Devon finally approached a salesman who was arranging brochures on a counter. The young man, whose name tag read Tyler, looked up with mild annoyance. Can I help you? Tyler asked, his tone suggesting he'd rather not. I'm interested in the black sedan in the corner, Devon said, pointing to a luxury model priced at $110,000. Tyler looked Devon up and down, taking in his casual clothes and ordinary appearance. That's our premium model. It starts at over $100,000. I'm aware of the price, Devon replied calmly. I'd like to test drive it. Tyler gave a small laugh. We typically require proof of financing before test drives on our high-end vehicles. Do you have pre-approval from a bank? Before Devon could answer, the glass doors of the dealership swung open. 4 people in expensive business suits walked in. Alex Reed led the group, followed by Melissa Chen, Devon's CFO, and 2 other executives from Devon's company. The atmosphere in the showroom shifted immediately. The newcomers radiated power and wealth. Several salespeople straightened their postures and moved toward the group. Richard Collins quickly excused himself from his current customers and intercepted the group with a broad smile. Welcome to Luxury Motors. I'm Richard Collins, the general manager. How can I assist you today? Alex Reed nodded politely. We're looking for Devon Washington. I believe he's already here. Richard's smile faltered slightly. I don't believe I've met anyone by that name today. Devon walked over, leaving the confused Tyler behind. I'm Devon Washington. Richard's eyes darted between Devon and the suited executives, clearly trying to make sense of the situation. Oh, I see. Are these people with you? Yes, Devon replied. This is my attorney, Alex Reed, my chief financial officer, Melissa Chen, and 2 members of my executive team. Richard's expression changed completely. Now he smiled at Devon with newfound respect. Mr. Washington, I apologize for the misunderstanding. If you and your associates would like to come to my office, we can discuss whatever vehicle you're interested in. Devon looked directly at Richard. Actually, we're not here to buy a car. We're here to talk about buying the dealership. The showroom went silent. Sales staff and customers alike turned to stare. Richard's smile froze on his face. I don't understand, Richard stammered. I think you do, Devon said. I'd like to speak with your father, James Collins. I understand he's the owner of Collins Automotive Group. Richard's face flushed. My father isn't here today. I'm authorized to handle all dealership matters. This goes beyond this single dealership, Alex Reed interjected, opening his briefcase. We're interested in discussing the acquisition of the entire Collins Automotive Group. We have a letter of intent prepared. Richard's eyes widened. This is highly unusual. I can't just. Call your father, Devin suggested, his voice firm but calm. Tell him Devin Washington is here with an offer. I think he'll want to hear it, especially given the company's current financial situation. The color drained from Richard's face. He looked around at the watching staff and customers, then forced a smile. Of course. Please, come to the conference room. I'll call my father immediately. As they walked to the back of the dealership, Tyler, the salesman who had dismissed Devin earlier, stared in shock. Devin caught his eye and nodded politely as he passed. In the large conference room, Richard excused himself to make a call. Devin and his team settled into the leather chairs around the polished table. Do you think he knows why we're really here? Melissa whispered. Devin shook his head. Not yet, but he will soon. 10 minutes later, Richard returned, looking nervous. My father is on his way. He should be here within the hour. Excellent, Devin replied. While we wait, perhaps you could tell me about your customer service policies. I'm particularly interested in how you treat different types of potential buyers. Richard shifted uncomfortably in his seat, sensing something was very wrong but not quite understanding what. The trap was set, and now there was nothing to do but wait for the owner to arrive. James Collins arrived at the dealership 55 minutes later. He was a tall man in his 60s with silver hair and an expensive suit. His confident stride faltered slightly when he entered the conference room and saw the group waiting for him. Mr. Washington, he said, extending his hand to Devin. I'm James Collins. Richard tells me you're interested in acquiring my business. Devin stood and shook his hand firmly. Yes, please have a seat. James sat at the head of the table, a position he clearly felt was his by right. Richard took the chair beside his father, looking increasingly uncomfortable. I'll be direct, Mr. Collins, Devin began. I know your automotive group is in financial trouble. You've taken on too much debt, and 2 of your dealerships are secretly on the market. James' expression hardened. Business has been challenging recently, and we're hardly desperate. Alex Reed slid a folder across the table. These are the figures we've compiled. Your company has lost 22% of its market share in the past year. You've laid off 15% of your staff, and your largest loan payment is due in 3 months. James opened the folder, his face betraying surprise at the accuracy of the information. How did you? That's not important, Devin interrupted. What matters is that I'm prepared to make you an offer for the entire Collins Automotive Group. And who exactly are you, Mr. Washington? James asked, studying Devin more carefully now. I don't believe we've crossed paths in the automotive industry before. Devin glanced at Melissa, who handed James a second folder. I founded Washtec Logistics 7 years ago. I sold it last year for $4.3 billion. I'm looking to diversify my investments. James's eyes widened as he looked through Devin's credentials. Even Richard leaned over to see the documents. I'm prepared to offer you $135 million for the entire Collins Automotive Group. Devin continued. That's approximately 20% above market value in the current economy. James looked up sharply. That's generous. Surprisingly generous. There are conditions, Devin said, nodding to Alex. Alex opened his briefcase and removed a thick contract. First, the deal must close within 72 hours. Second, Mr. Washington will retain 85% of the current staff across all dealerships. And third, Devin added, leaning forward, Richard Collins will not be part of the company moving forward. Richard jumped to his feet. What? Dad, this is ridiculous. James held up his hand to silence his son. Why that specific condition, Mr. Washington? Devin reached into his pocket and took out his phone. He pulled up a photo and turned the screen toward James. Do you recognize these people? James looked at the picture of Marcus and Simone Washington. No, should I? They're my parents, Devin said quietly. Yesterday, they came to this dealership to buy a car. They were treated with disrespect and ultimately told to go to a more affordable dealership by your son. Richard's face went pale. I didn't know they were. Related to me. Devon finished for him. You shouldn't have to know that to treat people with dignity, Mr. Collins. Devon turned back to James. I've also found 17 complaints in the last year from minority customers who experienced similar treatment at your dealerships. 3 were considering legal action. James looked at his son with a mix of anger and disappointment. Then he turned back to Devon. Mr. Washington, I had no idea this was happening. As the owner, it's your responsibility to know, Devon replied. But I'm not here for apologies. I'm here to buy your company and transform it into something better. James studied the contract before him, then looked at his son, whose career he had carefully nurtured. Finally, he looked back at Devon. I need an hour to review this with my attorney, he said. Devon nodded. Of course. We'll wait. As James left with the contract, Richard remained seated, staring at Devon with a mixture of shock and anger. You're doing all this because I didn't sell a car to your parents? He asked incredulously. No, Devon replied calmly. I'm doing this because no one should be treated the way you treated them. The dealership is just a bonus. 2 hours later, James Collins returned to the conference room with his lawyer, a nervous-looking man in a wrinkled suit. Richard sat silently in the corner, his face tight with anger. Mr. Washington, James began, after reviewing your offer with my attorney, I've decided to accept your terms. Devon nodded, showing no surprise. Excellent decision. Alex Reed pulled out a pen and slid it across the table. James hesitated for just a moment before signing each page of the contract. His attorney reviewed each signature, then nodded sadly. Congratulations, Mr. Washington, James said, pushing the signed contract back. You are now the owner of Collins Automotive Group, or I suppose it won't be called that anymore. Washington Automotive Group, Devon confirmed, signing as part of the contract. The transfer of funds will be completed within the hour. Richard suddenly stood up and slammed his fist on the table. This is ridiculous. Dad, you're just giving up everything we built because this guy's parents got their feelings hurt. James turned to his son with tired eyes. Richard, enough. The company was already in trouble. This offer saves us from bankruptcy. But he's firing me, Richard shouted. After all I've done for this company. Devon remained calm. You'll receive 6 months' severance pay, Mr. Collins. More than fair considering the circumstances. Richard pointed a finger at Devon. You have no idea how to run a car dealership. You'll fail within a year. Perhaps, Devon replied. But I know how to treat people with respect, and that's where we'll start. James stood up slowly, looking defeated but relieved. When do you want to announce the change in ownership? Immediately, Devon answered. I'd like to address the staff here before the end of the day. James nodded. I'll call a meeting for 4 p.m. That gives us 2 hours. As James and his attorney left to make arrangements, Richard lingered, glaring at Devon. You think you're so clever, he said bitterly, using your money to get revenge. Devon straightened his tie. This isn't revenge, Mr. Collins. It's correction. There's a difference. At exactly 4 p.m., all 38 employees of Luxury Motors gathered in the showroom. Rumors had been flying all afternoon about mysterious visitors and hushed meetings. The sales staff stood nervously in small groups, whispering theories to each other. James Collins stepped to the front, looking strangely calm. Everyone, I have an important announcement. As of today, Collins Automotive Group has been sold to Washington Enterprises. A wave of murmurs swept through the crowd. One salesman raised his hand. Are we losing our jobs? Not all of you, James replied, then stepped aside. Devon walked forward, no longer in his casual clothes but now wearing a perfectly tailored suit. Good afternoon, I'm Devon Washington, the new owner of what will now be called Washington Automotive Group. The staff stared at him in shock. Several recognized him as the unassuming young man they had ignored earlier. Most of you will keep your positions, Devon continued. But there will be changes. Starting tomorrow, we implement new customer service policies. Every person who walks through those doors will be treated with equal respect, regardless of how they look, what they wear, or their perceived ability to buy. Devon pointed to the back of the room. In fact, I've invited 2 people to help demonstrate our new approach. The staff turned to see Marcus and Simone Washington entering the showroom, looking slightly uncomfortable but determined. Mom, Dad, Devon called. Welcome back to what is now Washington Automotive Group. The staff's eyes widened as they realized the connection. Tyler, the dismissive salesman from earlier, went pale. "These are my parents," Devon explained. "Yesterday, they were treated poorly in this very showroom. Today, they'll be the first customers of our newly reformed business." Devon turned to Richard, who stood sulking by the wall. "Mr. Collins, your office needs to be cleared out by morning. Your final check will be mailed to you." As Richard stormed out, Devon addressed the remaining staff again. "Tomorrow begins a new chapter for this dealership. Those who embrace our values of respect and equality will thrive here. Those who don't will follow Mr. Collins out the door." The message was crystal clear. In just 24 hours, everything had changed. 1 month after Devon Washington purchased Collins Automotive Group, the changes were already visible. New signs displayed the Washington Automotive Group name at all 7 dealership locations. Inside Luxury Motors, the flagship store, the atmosphere had completely transformed. Devon had hired Maria Rodriguez, a respected business consultant specializing in customer service, to oversee the transition. On a bright Monday morning, she walked through the showroom, clipboard in hand, observing the staff interactions. "Good morning, Mrs. Patel," a salesman named Kevin greeted an elderly Indian woman who had just entered. "Welcome back. The sedan you asked about last week just arrived. Would you like to see it?" Mrs. Patel smiled widely. "Yes, please, and thank you for remembering." Maria made a note on her clipboard. This was exactly the kind of interaction Devon had demanded: respectful, attentive, and equal for every customer. In the corner office that once belonged to Richard Collins, Devon sat reviewing the monthly sales figures with Melissa. Surprisingly, despite initial fears from the staff, sales had not dropped. In fact, they had increased by 8%. "The numbers don't lie," Melissa said, pointing to the chart on her tablet. "Your new policies are working. Word is spreading that Washington Automotive Group treats everyone fairly." Devon nodded. "It's not just right, it's smart business. When you respect people, they come back, they tell their friends." A knock on the door interrupted them. Tyler, the salesman who had dismissed Devon on that first day, stood nervously in the doorway. "Mr. Washington, do you have a minute?" he asked. Devon gestured for him to enter. Tyler had narrowly kept his job after a sincere apology and a promise to change his approach. "The Jenkins family is here," Tyler said. "They're ready to finalize their purchase." The Jenkins family was African American, from a middle-class neighborhood similar to where Devon had grown up. They had been shopping for a car for weeks, but felt uncomfortable at other dealerships. "How did you handle it?" Devon asked, studying Tyler's face. "I showed them every option in their price range, answered all their questions, and didn't push for the most expensive model," Tyler replied. "They chose the mid-range sedan with the safety package, exactly what they needed for their family." Devon smiled slightly. "Good, that's exactly how it should be done." As Tyler left, Devon turned back to Melissa. "We've still got work to do. What about the other locations?" 5 are adapting well to the new policies," she answered. 2 are still struggling. The managers at those locations were close friends with Richard Collins. Devon stood up. "I'll visit them personally this week. Sometimes people need to see the owner's commitment firsthand." Later that afternoon, Devon called a meeting with all staff. They gathered in the showroom, no longer fearful as they had been that first day, but curious and engaged. "In just 1 month, you've shown me what's possible," Devon began. "Our customer satisfaction ratings have improved by 35%. Our sales are up. But most importantly, we're building a reputation for fairness." He pointed to the large windows facing the street. "Look outside. Notice anything different?" The staff turned to see a more diverse group of customers browsing the lot than ever before. "Our customer base is expanding," Devon continued. "People who never thought they'd be welcome here are giving us a chance. That means more business, more commissions, and more jobs." A hand raised in the back. It was Dana, a longtime receptionist. "Mr. Washington, can I say something?" Devon nodded. "Of course. I've worked here for 11 years, Dana said. I always felt uncomfortable with how some customers were treated, but I was afraid to speak up. Thank you for changing things." Several staff members nodded in agreement. Devon smiled. Thank you for staying and helping us improve. This is just the beginning. After the meeting, Devon walked the showroom floor, stopping to speak with each customer. He didn't introduce himself as the owner, just as a team member wanting to ensure their experience was positive. Outside, he paused to look at the new sign gleaming in the sunlight. Washington Automotive Group was becoming exactly what he had envisioned. Not just a profitable business, but a model for how things could be different. His phone buzzed with a text from his father. "Proud of you, son. You didn't just buy a dealership. You changed it." 6 months after Devon Washington purchased Collins Automotive Group, the transformation was complete. What began as a response to discrimination had evolved into a business revolution that caught national attention. On a warm Saturday morning, Marcus and Simon Washington pulled into the parking lot of the flagship location in their silver luxury sedan, the very model they had wanted to purchase that fateful day. They were dressed elegantly, having just come from a charity breakfast where Devon had been the keynote speaker. "It still feels strange pulling in here," Simon admitted, looking at the gleaming Washington Automotive Group sign. Marcus squeezed her hand. "Strange but good." As they entered the showroom, several employees greeted them by name. No longer were they just customers. They were the parents of the owner, though they insisted on being treated like anyone else. Maria Rodriguez, now the permanent customer experience director, approached them with a warm smile. "Mr. and Mrs. Washington, it's wonderful to see you. Devon is waiting in the main conference room." It followed Maria through the bustling showroom. The space had been redesigned. Gone were the intimidating closed offices where salespeople once pressured customers. Instead, comfortable seating areas allowed for relaxed conversations about car options. In the large conference room, Devon stood at the head of a table surrounded by business reporters from major publications. When he saw his parents, he paused mid-sentence and smiled. "And here are the people who inspired it all," he said, walking over to embrace them. "Mom, Dad, please join us." The reporters turned, cameras flashing. One woman raised her hand. "Mr. and Mrs. Washington, how does it feel to see what your son has created from an unfortunate experience?" Marcus looked proudly at Devon. "When we called him that day, we just needed to vent. We never imagined he would turn it into this." Simon added, "We raised him to stand up for what's right, but he went beyond standing up. He created change." Devon guided his parents to seats at the table. "Let me share some numbers with you all," he said to the reporters. "In 6 months, Washington Automotive Group has increased sales by 27% across all locations. Our customer base has expanded by 42%, with significant growth in communities that rarely shopped at luxury dealerships before." A reporter raised his hand. "And your former competitor, Richard Collins, has claimed you're using gimmicks to steal customers. Any response?" Devon smiled. "Fair treatment isn't a gimmick, it's good business. As for Richard, I heard he's opened a small used car lot across town. I wish him well." After the press conference, Devon took his parents on a tour of the dealership. They stopped at the employee training room, where new hires were watching a video about customer service standards. "Every employee goes through a 2-week training program now," Devon explained. "They learn about unconscious bias, respectful communication, and the importance of treating everyone equally." As they walked, a young black couple entered the showroom, looking nervous and holding hands just as Marcus and Simon had 6 months earlier. "Watch this," Devon said quietly. 3 salespeople approached the couple immediately, each offering assistance. The couple looked surprised but quickly relaxed into conversation with one of the salespeople who led them to a car they were interested in. "That's the difference," Marcus said, nodding with satisfaction. Later, in Devon's office, the 3 Washingtons shared a private moment. Devon handed his parents an envelope. "What's this?" Simon asked, opening it. Inside was a certificate showing that 10% of Washington Automotive Group's profits would go to a new foundation, the Washington Equal Opportunity Foundation, dedicated to supporting minority entrepreneurs. "Your experience created something bigger than a car dealership," Devon explained. "It's creating opportunities." Marcus, usually stoic, wiped a tear from his eye. From being kicked out to changing the system. That's something. Outside, the dealership hummed with activity. Customers of all backgrounds moved freely through the showroom, treated with the same respect and attention. What began as one man's response to his parents' humiliation had become a model business that others were starting to emulate. The Washington name, once dismissed at a car dealership, now stood for something powerful, proof that doing the right thing and running a successful business weren't opposing ideas. They were, in fact, perfectly aligned.